A convicted murderer found dead in his cell at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Find out the details straight ahead.
The Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association welcoming a new president. I'm Jared Higgs. I'll have all the details straight ahead in the Bahamas Tonight.
And in sports, high school basketball kicks off. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
A murder convict is found dead in his cell, and now authorities are putting the pieces together as they investigate. Good evening, I'm Opal Roach.
And I'm Chris Saunders. Thank you so much for joining us. Police are not saying if foul play is suspected, but they have launched a full-on investigation into the death of a sentenced inmate linked to that deadly prison break 8 years ago. Charisma Robinson was at the Department of Corrections today and tells us what officials have so far confirmed.
The scene outside of the Bahamas Department of Corrections was quiet when our news team arrived shortly before noon today. However, we can tell you that was not the case early this morning, as convicted murderer Forrest DeBoe Jr. died behind those gates.
Bo's body had already been removed when we arrived at the Department of Corrections shortly before noon Friday. However, we can tell you that officers were still processing the scene at the time. One prison official described the scene this morning as chaotic. We were not able to speak with authorities on camera. However, in a statement released to our newsroom Friday afternoon, Commissioner of Corrections Patrick Wright confirmed that Bo was found dead in his cell, unresponsive, during roll call around 6:50 this morning. The department's medical officer was called, and after examination, he was pronounced dead at 7:45 a.m. Bo is one of 3 men linked to that deadly prison break in January of 2006. They overpowered and killed prison officer Dion Bowles. Prison guards responded with gunfire, killing prisoner Neil Brown. 2 guards were also wounded. Bo was initially sentenced to death, but that sentence was commuted to life, and the original sentence was quashed. Now the matter was turned over to police and the coroner for investigation. Charisma Robinson, ZNS Network News.
Well, still on crime news, investigations continue into that shooting in Nassau Village after midnight where a man was shot multiple times. Police say around 1 a.m. a group of men were in the William Street area when a gunman opened fire, hitting one of them. The victim was taken to hospital where he later died. Authorities need your help in solving this crime. Also from police, a woman was apparently sexually assaulted by a man she met online. Authorities say the woman visited the suspect's home in Elizabeth Estates yesterday, where she was sexually assaulted. Police later arrested a 25-year-old man in connection with that incident.
From the court, a conviction has been handed down in the country's second human trafficking case, this time by Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt. 24-year-old Jamaican national Apollonia McLean Smith was found guilty of trafficking in persons, unlawfully withholding the identification of a person, and transporting a person for the purpose of prostitution. The court found the offenses were committed between May and June of 2013. The woman wept as the ruling was handed down and will return to court on November 12th for sentencing. A probation report is expected to be prepared for that date as requested by her attorney, Robert Reckley. The court found that McLean Smith deceived a fellow Jamaican, luring her to the Bahamas under the guise that she would be employed as a cashier. The victim in her evidence told the court that McLean Smith made her dance at Magic City and perform sexual services, going as far as to even tell her how much to charge. Additionally, she was told that she had to repay McLean Smith $1,200 for her ticket to the country and $250 for rent. The victim said she paid McLean Smith $550 every Sunday from her work. The victim said she gave McLean Smith her passport to extend her time with immigration, but it was never returned. McLean Smith denied all of the charges and said she picked up the victim simply as a favor to a friend. The chief magistrate found that McLean Smith used psychological coercion and indirect threats of harm on the victim. Still at the court, former death row inmate Mario Flowers was shown mercy by a senior judge today after being resentenced to 29 years and 2 months in prison for killing police constable Ramos Williams 7 years ago. Senior Justice John Isaacs initially sentenced Flowers to 36 years. However, he deducted the time Flowers had already spent in prison. Crown Prosecutor Neil Brathwaite had asked the court to sentence 32-year-old Flowers to 60 years in prison, noting that the father of one never took advantage of opportunities to change his criminal behavior. However, Flowers' attorney, Sonia Timothy, begged the court for mercy, noting that Flowers has shown remorse and can be rehabilitated. Flowers thanked the court after being sentenced today. He had initially been sentenced to death, but that was overturned on appeal and sent back to the lower court for resentencing. Still on the Court of Appeal has taken $100,000 off a $250,000 fine it imposed on convicted drug dealer Melvin Maycock Sr. and will now allow him to pay it in installments. You may remember that Maycock was sentenced to 3 years in prison back in 2011 following a drugs and ammunition conviction. He appealed, but the court upheld his conviction and sentenced and also fined him $250,000 or $250,000. Maycock also faced an additional 2 years in prison if he did not pay. The father of five then asked permission to appeal to the Privy Council. That was refused. He then appealed to the High Court for permission to pay in installments and also challenged the constitutionality of the varied sentence. In a written ruling released yesterday, Justice Abdullah Conte reduced the fine and took away the 2-year prison time. He also ordered Maycock to pay the first installment of $50,000 immediately, with a balance to be paid within a year. If he does not, the court noted that it will seize his possessions and his goods to satisfy the balance.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.